Hello. Welcome to another battleship inspection in World of Hildebrand. World of Warships. We are playing World of Warships. I guess. Boy, was I enjoyed to come home to record the commentary from work today and realize that yeah, all my replays from the day before in Kremlin didn't they weren't valid. I couldn't view them and then commentate on them. Pretty fucking cool. So instead of 6 games that we were going to kind of speed run through to show the playstyle of Kremlin and how it is still quite repeatable in 2024, because spoiler alert, the Kremlin is still a fucking beast. The idea that this thing cannot perform in the current meta is ridiculous. The thing is still ridiculous in many ways. So we're looking at two. We played 2 games for this video, 2 back-to-back games, and yeah, I have 3 Hildebrands on my team, and the red team has 2. So now we often talk about what you want to see matchmaker wise. It ain't fucking this. CV and sub are the 2 most ridiculous things that turbo fuck on Kremlin. More than you might typically expect if you're not a Kremlin enjoyer. Why is that? Well, you have these limited DCPs, so if you get like double fired or flooded by a carrier drop, then like that is actually really shit, because effectively that's 20% of your damage controllability throughout the game, right? If a CV wants to hump you in something like the Kremlin, you can actually just like run out of DCPs pretty quick fast. We got a nice Salem here. We're going flat to a Slava because I'm greedy. Yeah, he's going to probably 30 KS. That's the mental math in my head going broadside to that, guys. He'll 30k mean. It'll be aight. It'll be aight. That's kind of like the only thing Slava's good at is citadeling battleships with above water citadels at long range. So, you know, he gets that hit every time pretty much. So, we don't want to let a Salem spam us, obviously, because we don't want to grief the DCP. You have a Des Moines making a very, very interesting play. Now, Kremlin Dispersion is often considered a bit of a shotgun at long range. There's some truth to that. But, I mean, it's still, like, I'm expecting 1 or 2 sets. Even at that range on broadside Des Moines, even with this ropey dispersion at longer ranges. Now, at close range, one of Kremlin's many gimmicks, you could almost make an argument that Kremlin is like one of the OG gimmick sticks in the game, right? This whole line of battleships, some of the gimmickiest ships in the game. Kremlin's kind of has a few gimmicks. One, the incredible armor platings on it, and that include a 60 millimeter deck, which is a very, very, very crucial threshold to hit due to the amazing amount of shells in this game that actually can pen 51 and 59. That you're immune to those. Something like GK isn't, right? Even something like the Armada with 57 is not immune to those 59 millimeter HE pen salvos from many cruisers and many smaller caliber battleships as well. Kremlin also has, of course, the fast cooldown DCP, reloads in 40 seconds base. And then you also have not just railguns. They used to be the fastest shells in the game, pretty much. The fastest overmatching shells, but as we discussed in the Preußen video, the Preußen actually has barely faster shells than Kremlin. But your dispersion is obscenely good at close and short medium range. What I mean by obscenely good is I mean as good, if not better, than Wisconsin's dispersion. This would be 12 kilometers and closer. Between the 12 and 15 kilometer range, the dispersion precipitously increases compared to its dispersion over distance at closer range, and then kind of at longer range you're kind of ending up being like a GK with no accuracy mod kind of dispersion, right? So pretty bad, right? I mean, undeniably quite bad. But then of course you have 457, so you overmatch 30 like this Salem here. It's like, we need to be hyper accurate? And I want to be clear, at this range, this 14 kilometer range, like this ship is not, it's still not really even, I don't think, fair to call a shotgun. I mean, we compared the close range dispersion to Wisconsin because inside of 12 kilometers, it basically is as good, even factoring in the mods. And then it actually stays fairly comparative. I mean, The dispersion vertically on Kremlin is still almost identical to Wisconsin out to 12 kilometers, but the horizontal dispersion starts becoming pretty bad, and then kind of around like the 15, 14 kilometer range is where the vertical dispersion really starts becoming bad. But even then, like, when we compare it to, something with standard battleship dispersion, we're going to use GK as an example. You don't even really get worse dispersion than something like a GK until you're around like 16, 17 kilometers. So it's not really the shotgun that people make it out to be. The shells being laser fast and having overmatch are obviously doing a ton of heavy fucking lifting too when it comes to shooting people at longer ranges. And the Kremlin is kind of, widely hailed for its tanking ability, but I do think a very, very strong caveat needs to be mentioned with the Kremlin tanking, is that the Kremlin is very tanky in very bursty engagements. The Kremlin does not really even have the kind of long-term tankiness of really even something like a Montana that gets that crazy American DCP, that gets that improved heal. The point of Kremlin's tankiness is to start a fight with at least 2 DCPs and at least 2 heals available, and just not die to an incredible amount of sustained fire. Like, that is where Kremlin's tankiness comes from. Kremlin does not have long duration tanky, particularly against good fire starting ships, good HE spam. Now, your platings are, of course, very resilient to the penetration damage from HE spam, right? Also, you do have quite a small superstructure, an abnormally small superstructure by tier 10 battleship standards. That helps a lot, but you do not have, like if this Sherman, like, let's say I'm permanently spotted, right? There's 2 Hildenbrands on the enemy team. Let's say I'm just perma-spotted for this Sherman to HE spam. Like, I'm going to get griefed incredibly, incredibly hard. Way harder by Sherman HE spam than, like, Montana, any American, or many other ships will. And that's down to the DCP does not really last any time at all. Kind of the longest you can get it up to is, like, 16, 17 seconds. Typically not worth building for, although I do sometimes build a weird no-concealed tank build on Kremlin. But you have railguns, which means a flatter shell trajectory, which means a flatter impact angle, combined with very, very high just raw, penetration itself on the guns. The penetration is quite high, at something like 20 kilometers. You're probably somewhere around 50 millimeters more pen than, the GKs, the Montanas of the world, right? Which is quite nice. So, and then combined with those really flat shell arcs means the effective penetration at range is longer. So the Kremlin is kind of one of the very few battleships in the game that can, like, Citadel flat Yamatos, even really out to, like, about 18 kilometers. We're not counting, like, cheek shots. We're just talking flat on the main belt. But this is what we're trying to do in Kremlin. The Salem and Des Moines, that's a bit too much HE spam. The Sherman, we don't want to push into that. Now that the Sherman's forced to run away, I can play what I want, do what I want to do in the Kremlin. And what I want to do in the Kremlin is just run at the whole enemy team. And it still works. It still works very, very, very consistently. If you have been watching this channel as far back as the Marseille video, and you remember my thoughts on the quote-unquote passive meta, I am going to do a lot of repeating myself in this. Now, you see here, I'm not getting cheek on this guy, and he turned in, so I aimed a little bit too high. But also, the reload is quite nice, because you do run reload mod on Kremlin. So this 29-second reload on these guns is really quite comfy. And at this kind of range, like this 9-kilometer range, like, again, I want to stress, we have the same, like, dispersion as Wisconsin, but on, obviously, like, infinitely better, AP shells. And there you see the non-pen, because we didn't quite get him in the cheek. But this is what I mean by the burst tanking. Like, I am going to just park in 4 ships' mouths, and not immediately die. Whereas 90% plus of battleships would probably be dead about 1 minute into this engagement. And the Kremlin, because, like, if you remember what I said, you want to start with at least 2 and 2. If I only had 1 DCP, 1 heal left, I couldn't really do this. I would probably burn out too fast. But also, we're running improved repair party readiness. We can talk about how massively buffed, particularly particularly the Kremlin became with improved repair party readiness. That skill probably buffed the Kremlin more than like almost any battleship in the game, because the Kremlin is quote-unquote balanced around only having 3 heals base, and with the captain skill you only get 4, and then you only have 5 of these damage controls max. So the fact that, you know, it's so tanky that you're pretty much always going to tank 2 million potential, but you see, and then of course we're running Kuznetsov, so we just live like even longer, and this Yamato is going way too broadside, and the dispersion at this range is demonic, so we get a triple sit on 4 hits, right? And then the Hildebrand's finally close enough range to Citadel us, because Kremlin does have a very, very above water non-troll Citadel. It's about a little over 400 mils of armor at a heavy slope, so you just need a lot of pen. You need a lot of raw penetration on your armor piercing to Citadel Kremlin, but it doesn't have any, like, if you have the pen to Citadel Kremlin, you will hit Kremlin for 3 to 5 times what you will hit a broadside Montana for. Like, you get a Kremlin broadside at 10 kilometers in a Vermont, you will fucking dev strike the thing, right? The Citadel is very above water, very exposed, but this is the idea. This is the idea in Kremlin. I'm trying to do this every single game. Not, you know, that doesn't mean YOLO up the middle, 2.5 minutes into the game, I get focused out and die. But kind of what I'm looking to do is I'm looking to play the first part of the game around like the not super close 10-kilometer range, but I'm looking to stay within like 13 to 16 kilometers of the enemy team, so I've got pretty solid dispersion, right? I don't want to be playing at 20 point whatever the max range on the Kremlin is, where it is a bit of a shotgun. I want to be playing in like that low to mid-teen range to start the game, and then the fucking second, there is basically my criteria in pushing in the Kremlin is just like, as long as there's not at least 3 HE spammers, or like a sub in my mouth, I'm going in. Like, I don't fucking care if it's a torp boat. I don't care if it's like 1 Des Moines or like 1 HE spamming cruiser or like 2 or 3 battleships. As long as there's not a sub up my ass or like literally 3 plus HE spammers, we're going in. That's the point of the fucking ship, man. You don't want to go in, then don't play the Kremlin. That's my theory on that. And I want to stress repeatedly, like I stressed in the Marseille video, that this playstyle in 2024, in CV, in sub lobbies, yeah, if a sub really wants to fuck your game, he probably can. This playstyle is repeatable. Again, we're gonna go on a mini discussion. The passive meta is a choice that the community collectively unconsciously agrees to abide by. And it is why, I've said this many times, it is why when you're watching people play this game and you say things like, you know, I'm not saying you are personally guilty of this, I'm saying this happens a lot. You'll see constant comments on videos. I wish people went broadside to my battleships. Why does this streamer or this YouTuber get so many paid actors? And it's like, but are you in a Kremlin on their side of the map 6 minutes into the game? No? Okay. Well, then that's why. Because people don't have any idea how to play. And this is why people play passive. They play passive for several reasons. One, they like that funny damage number on the top right of their screen being as high as possible, because they watch people on YouTube or Twitch get 300 plus K games, and then they don't understand averages. And even people who fucking battleship mains, the narcissistic battleship main doesn't understand averages, so they get 110k damage game, and they're like, oh, I barely did any damage. And it's like, well, yeah, but your next game was 290 because you're playing nothing but, you know, fucking Maine and Satsuma every game, right? It's called a fucking average. And people choose to play passive because if you win too fast, you don't get damage. And that is why you will often see these, you know, quote unquote higher skilled players like playing passive for, you know, what appears to you to be no reason. Because the thing is, if you rush in and you, you know, shove your Kremlin up somebody's mouth and you get, you know, 2 triple sit salvos on them and kill them, that's actually bad for your stats, right? Like, this, it's insane. You're probably thinking this is crazy, but it's just a fact. If you care about average damage, if you care about high damage games, you don't want to win quickly. You don't want to perform well because it's bad for your stats. So people are incentivized to play passively for that reason. Yes, absolutely, subs the more ridiculous carriers like, you know, Malta, these newer CVs, FDR, that could spam planes so fast, and then all of these bullshit hybrids and subs, right? Yes, this is a counter to pushing. Undeniably, we're not coping our way out of and trying to claim this is not a counter to pushing. But guess what? You can still push, man. It's a fucking video game. I promise, I actually make you a promise. If your ship sinks in World of Warships, you will not die in real life. I promise you. It's just a pixel boat that is sinking. And, you know, my philosophy is, especially in ships like Kremlin, I don't expect you to take this position in a Montana. I don't expect anyone to do that. I wouldn't do that most of the time. most of the time. But this is what I mean. We want to start in the low to mid-teens, right? We're not so far full send committed that we can't get away if shit gets out of control. I should have shot right now, by the way. Yep, that blind froze about a full second too late, so we're going to miss that guy. But it's like, yeah, I'm going flat, you know. Montana could probably hit me, maybe get a Citadel. Vermont could hit me, maybe get a couple Citadels, but it's like, why would we care? Like, I want to shoot at the DD because I want to help my team. Okay, if someone shoots me for 20 to 40k, it's cost of doing business, man. I mean, like, we're trying to play the fucking game, okay? We're trying to play the game, and the Kremlin incentivizes playing the game. We're not AFK and spawn in Kremlin, right? It doesn't even really work, and that's why it really fucking kills me. Typically what happens is I see two kinds of Kremlin players. I see the guy who is like, well, I'm going to be in B right now, and now they're already dead, right? I see the suicider. Or I see the guy that's kiting on the sea line in this situation. And neither of those needs to happen, right? Neither of those needs to happen. We can play with controlled aggression. We're looking for an opening, right? We don't need to push into A against the Yamagiri and a sub, right? But what if we kill the Yamagiri? Okay, well, that's 90% of the cross-torp threat gone. The sub is over here. Okay, so we're going to get the sub kill. Now we already have the opening, right? You know, our team is up a bit on HP. We're up a couple of ships. We're going to be up 3 caps to 1. Like, this is, you know, it's time to, like, basically start the full send already. Yeah, you know, are you going to run the risk of maybe sometimes losing games because you die? Yes, there's a reason why super unicums tend to camp and spawn and kite. Because if you are the best player in the lobby, then you being dead means you cannot win your team the game, right? It is a valid strategy to constantly kite and damage farm. It's why you typically see quote-unquote high-skill players kiting away and not pushing, because if you make this push I'm making, and maybe the Z44 does some crazy-ass play and torps me out, right? Maybe the Montana is actually paying attention and punishes me flat broadside, right? There's all kinds of things that could theoretically go wrong here. Nice little 5-over pen on a broadside commissar moment there. Oh no, I got Citadel'd. Oh, I lost 30k. What am I going to do? It's okay. We're going to heal. We're going to be back up to 80,000 health. It's going to be fine, right? It's going to be fine. And it's like, it's so interesting to me. I mean, we're not trying to make this video an exclusive rant about the BB player base, but it's like the idea that 20-something thousand hit, that, let's just call it 30k. The idea that 30k hit that Montana just hit me for is like remotely debilitating is fucking hilarious. Like, that hit on a Kremlin is less game impactful than a fucking like 12k hit on the Des Moines. I mean, it just is. Like, the amount of healing, even a ship like Kremlin that has more limited healing. Very cool that we get to arc that and just hit, fucking smash this guy for like, that's what I mean. That hit I just hit on that Des Moines, over pens and pens on his bow, just barely clipping him over the rock, is not 10 times more debilitating than that juicy almost 30k hit Montana got on me. And like, the fact that Battleship players just can't seem to get this through their fucking skulls, that like it's okay to take damage. Nice nuke the island, very cool. They just can't get it through their skulls that like part of your job is taking damage. Tanking doesn't mean I'm in a Kremlin bow in and nothing damages me. Tanking means I'm in a Kremlin bow in and I lose 100,000 health over the course of 5 minutes. That's what tanking means, right? We're not trying to end the game on full HP. Like, the fucking heals are utility. The heals on a battleship, you know, I mean, yeah, it's true of any ship with a heal, but like especially on battleships or a ship like Kremlin, because you have limited damage control parties, uh, the heals and the DCP on Kremlin are consumables. They're like a Hydra or a Radar on a Des Moines or a Nevsky or something. And it's like if you're ending the game with 3 or 4 heals in pocket and 3 or 4 DCPs in pocket every single game, okay, then you better be winning 100% of your fucking games, right? Because it means you didn't try to win. Uh, and it's just like, you know, lose by trying, man. Like this, like my ultimate, you know, the philosophy on this channel. It's like we lose by trying. We don't lose by not trying. That's the fundamental concept. Yes, there are games where a bit more passive play would lead to a win because, I mean, the reality is, even if you're like a 55% win rate player, like you're probably in many lobbies the best player in the lobby. Like if you have a current, like you know, like your go on WoW's numbers and your last 60 days, you're a 55% solo player. You're probably one of like the 3 best players in the lobby. That's just the harsh reality with how bad this player base is. And so yes, if you push in and get 2 or 3 kills and 150,000, 200,000 damage and die, then congratulations, you did really, really good. And if this was any other online game in gaming history, that would have won your team the game 9 out of 10 times. But unfortunately, this is World of Warships, and we have people who basically are blind and have no hands, and they are not going to be able to close out a game that you've given them a free win in, right? So that's just kind of the unfortunate reality. You know, it's kind of why we got the Des Moines kill. We're hanging back a little bit because in a normal universe, like I have no idea. Okay, I have no fucking idea what this commissar is doing. He's hard spotted. There's a Jaeger and a sub in his fucking mouth, and he just refuses to shoot it. He thinks he's gonna get dark. Commissar has like crazy guns. I think this is the first, like, he could have already farmed me, right? I could have already been down another heal, another DCP, and down to 20, 30,000 HP. You know, he's just not farming me. So, you know, I'm going to read the room. It's like he's not farming me. We can pop out and shoot the Z because my DDs didn't want to shoot him. Get the free kill, and then we can keep pushing, right? We have another chance to push. So, like, the point of the Kremlin is, yes, it's not an OG St. Vincent where you can just park in front of 7 ships and never die, right? It's not that. But you can park in front of 2 or 3 ships and probably not die. Assuming you start, like, on this is what we're talking about, right? We're starting on a bit under half HP, but we've got 2 damage controls and we've got 3 heals. So we're going to, you know, the enemy team is going to have to pump out a solid, you know, 100 to 120,000 damage into us to kill us. As long as that pumping out the damage doesn't happen in under like 2.5 minutes, we're gonna live, right? And of course, you know, so you see up here at the top, we're at 2.2 million potential, right? 63-second heals. 63 motherfucking cock-sucking second heals on a Kremlin. You know, I have been informed by the World of Warships subreddit that improved repair party readiness isn't very good on ships with high HP because they don't reload their heals. But this is what I was talking about during that first replay of how Kremlin got the biggest buff in the game of improved repair party readiness. Really, Kremlin and Vincent to my mind, because Vincent got quote-unquote nerfed by having its heal reload in 100 seconds, but then they just, you know, then you just slap improved repair party readiness on Vincent. Like, it doesn't fucking matter. But yeah, Kremlin is theoretically balanced by having very limited healing. When you consider the kind of HP that the Kremlin has, right, and the fact that it gets 1 less heal than, say, a GK, you know, the Kremlin, like, undeniably has some of the lowest, some of the weakest healing in Tier 10, of all Tier 10 battleships. It really is some of the worst. But then we have IRPR, so we just totally fucking nullify it. And I mean, you can see the kind of dispersion, this replay and the last. The kind of dispersion you get, it's pretty solid in like that 14 to even 16 kilometer range. But once you get inside 12 kilometers, again, we're talking like basically Wisconsin's vertical dispersion with 0.2 worse signal, right? The guns are laser beams up close. It's another reason why you need to play Kremlin up close. It just shits out so much damage. Plus, with this reload, on half HP, we're rocking something like a 25-second reload on guns that like kind of hit 8 out of 9 inside of 12 kilometers, right? So the kind of damage you pump out on Kremlin when you're pushing into people is just kind of ridiculous. And it's still ridiculous. The boat is still not balanced. Like, the idea that the Kremlin is balanced because we have sub, CVs, and hybrids, that you suffer more while pushing in. It's like, that's true, but everyone suffers more. Like, yes, Kremlin undeniably suffers more against carriers than most ships because you can lose all your AA mounts and get just perma-griefed. It undeniably suffers more against subs than most battleships because you are big, you are clumsy, you have a horrible turning circle, so there's no point in buffing even the rudder shift at all. And then you have limited ECP, so you can't do the brain damage like American thing where you're in Montana, Vermont. Oh, I got sub ping. Let me hit the fucking R key, and then I can't get pinged or flooded for 31 fucking seconds. You can't do that in the Kremlin, right? You can't afford to use a DCP to dodge sub torps. You just kind of just can't afford it. And then because you want to play more aggressively, you're an easier target. And because you are typically, less mobile, you're typically rock positioned in Kremlin, right? You do kind of play it like a gigantic version of Stalingrad or Petro. So yeah, subs are more incentivized to go for you because you're a easier to hit target, right? The limited DCP, it's more game impactful for them to torp you, yada yada. But like, this is not an excuse. Like, subs, CVs, and hybrids is not an excuse to play your Kremlin in a kite at the sea line. It just isn't. Yeah, if you get focused, go do it for 2 or 3 minutes. But like, come on, man. Let's play the fucking video game. You and me together. Let's play the fucking video game the way it was intended to play. Yeah, wargaming admittedly does want to try to force us, right? They do want to suggest to the player base that you should play like passive cucks and spawn. I'm not denying this, okay? I'm not denying that the game design is incentivizing cuck damage farming from the sea line play. It is. But we don't have to let them win. We don't have to acquiesce. The player base can choose. Everyone can choose to play like this. This isn't even hyper aggressive, right? As you saw, we push up aggressively mid-game, early game. Okay, we take some heat. We kite for 2 or 3 minutes. We see an opening and we push again. Oh, there's a bunch of ships that can cross-torp us or crossfire us. Okay, maybe we'll chill on a rock for 2 or 3 minutes again. Oh, now we can push again, right? This is the play in the Kremlin, right? You're trying to island hop. You're trying to push. Whenever there's like 2 or less less than 3 ships that can focus you, you're trying to push again and again and again. Run the enemy team back into spawn, get within the range where these guns are fucking nuclear death machines because you like literally get, you get broadside targets in Kremlin at like 8-9 kilometers. You legitimately hit 9 out of 9 fucking shells. You like start dev striking everything. And it's still a really good ship. It's still a really good ship. Fuck people who say that this ship, it doesn't work in 2024. Or you need a div mate, you need a destroyer player. The ship works in 2024. It's still incredibly fucking good. It's still a ridiculous turbo fucking annihilation machine against basically every single cruiser in the game. There is no cruiser in the game that can fucking 1v1 Kremlin and like not die in Kremlin still on half HP with half its healing remaining, right? Like, there just isn't. It's just pure fucking cope by these battleship players who can't aim or can't position. Like, oh man, like I got spammed by the Des Moines and I'm at 16 kilometers, so I'm not very accurate. And it's like, bro, you're gonna fucking 10k him on cooldown. You're gonna shoot 7 salvos before he heals twice. Like, you're gonna fucking kill him. What are we doing? Like, this ship is still gonna kill every fucking cruiser in the game in a 1v1. Nothing is gonna fucking kill this thing. Let's stop coping about this. Like, battleships are fucking broken. The Kremlin is still fucking broken. Like, is the Kremlin not broken because broken CVs, broken subs, and broken hybrids can deter it from pushing? Is that what we're doing now? We're like, well, the Kremlin isn't overpowered because, like, if a sub is like 2 inches off your fucking cock, he can torp you, and if the hybrids go for you, you die. And Jesus Christ. Okay, we can continue the calm and collected analysis of the Kremlin in port equipment. Now, I'm going to say, broadly speaking, you run full tank build on Kremlin. But I do think there's kind of three variants of full tank Kremlin. There's like full tank for randoms. There's like full tank for ranked, and then there's what I would call like full tank plus. So this is the full tank randoms. This might seem an interesting choice in slot one. I consider this in slot one almost mandatory auxiliary armaments mod on the Kremlin for random battles. I consider this basically mandatory because you can literally lose 100.0% of your AA mounts in Kremlin. You can lose this many of your AA mounts. You can lose all of the AA in Kremlin from 1 or 2 HE bomb drops. I have in Louisiana literally wiped 100% of Kremlin's AA and secondaries with 2 bomb drops. If you get hit by 2 Conqueror salvos, it's all gone, right? In randoms, I think this is like literally a mandatory fucking skill. Whatever, can run engine room. 100% aiming, 100% prop mod, and 100% reload. These are no questions asked. These 3 don't change no matter what you're doing. Now, that's like a typical randoms full tank, and we're going to look at the captain, right? We're even running emergency repair instead of gunfeeder. Now, I actually think this is a cope skill. Gunfeeder is probably overall a better skill. You shouldn't be an HE purist in Kremlin. The HE is demonic. 6,500 alpha, 45 fire chance. Keep in mind, too, if you're playing aggressively. So let's say you're bow in the Kremlin, and you're fighting a bow in ship you don't overmatch. Like, you hit 6 out of 6 HE shells on their bow for a guaranteed fire and like 10k damage, right? So you don't want to be an AP purist, so probably overall Gunfeeder would be a better choice. But the CV, like this skill is mandatory in randoms over Grease the Gears. You don't need Grease the Gears. 34.5 second turret first, even running reload mod. This is a very standard Kremlin build for randoms. Now, for ranked, what I will typically do is I will swap out this for damage control party mod 1, which isn't super value, and then I will also swap out ship consumables mod 1. And this is giving you like 22 KHP heals. It's giving you about a 16-17 second DCP, which is pretty like respectable. And then you don't really need the AA to stay alive or anything like that, because there's no CVs in ranked. Right, Wargaming? There's no CVs in ranked, right? And then sometimes I'll kind of run a variant on this, even in randoms. I'll usually keep this, but I'll run ship consumables, and then I'll even get rid of concealment, and I'll change it out for basics of surveillance. It's cringe as fuck, dude. This is not the play. Don't do this. I would run this exact same. I would run this build in randoms, except I would grab Shell Feeder, and I would just overall recommend this in randoms. But it is funny. You play No Conceal Kremlin, and you get an extra 10k of healing because of this skill. You get, overall, your DCP is up for about, 30 more, 20 more seconds total. It's whatever. And then you take like basically 30-second fires because you run this. And sometimes I'll even run damage control. And it's silly. It's pretty silly. But I typically don't. This is like kind of the build I think is overall the best build on Kremlin. Like the concealment's so good. And also because the guns aren't amazing at long range, right? Like, I think that there is a very valid case to be made that concealment on many battleships doesn't matter. I think that concealment is kind of conceptually overhyped on BBs. There's a lot of battleships where like it just kind of doesn't matter. Like people talk about like taking like ledge mod on Montana as being like, but then you nerf your concealment, and it's like you're spamming on cooldown in that ship anyway typically. It's kind of whatever, right? But I do think Kremlin, because like your concealment range with full conceal is 13.4, and that's kind of like exactly the range where you start getting this crazy laser gun dispersion, right? So kind of does behoove you to like, basically what it does is it forces people to do one of two things. They either go beyond 14 kilometers and they can't spot you, or they fight you inside your concealment range where you have the fucking nuclear death machine dispersion on your guns, right? And then you just rape everything. So I'd say overall that's kind of, the build I typically run the vast majority of the time, unless I want to goof around with like that, like I said, tank plus build and drop concealment completely. Armor, this is what we mean about Kremlin Citadel. If we aim the ship like this, you can see that it's a bit sloped. So despite only being 410 middle, which is really not that much, uh, the slope is helping a bit. So really effectively, you probably have something like 500 millimeters of effective plating on the Citadel. But like we said, way above water. One of the highest above water citadels at tier 10 of all battleships, especially everything new, right? Like Kremlin, Loria, they actually have a citadel. And the second you gain the range, you are in the range where you can pen this thing, you white bar it. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. It doesn't have anything like a troll citadel. You do get an icebreaker from the front, so it's very unlikely you can take a sit through the nose. You definitely can, right? I mean, you can see here where the icebreaker is only perfectly even with the citadel. So, like, I mean, realistically, any shell from a 460 plus millimeter AP round that goes just above the icebreaker has a very strong chance to citadel you. It's just, it's not super likely to happen, right? The margin of error is pretty small of what they have to hit. Uh, the 60 deck and the small superstructure is really like the reason why Kremlin is so notoriously tanky against HE spam. Think of all the other battleships that get 50 and 51, right? Like we have like GK, Preußen, the new Libertard, Vermont, Incomparable. Like a lot of these ships have 50, 51 decks. And then even Yamato has like that 57 millimeter main section on the deck. And there's a lot of ships that pen 59, right? Like Goliath pens 59, and then all of these 356 millimeter BBs out there pen 59. It's actually not a super rare thing. And being immune to that kind of HE, like being very fairly immune to like Rhode Island HE spam is pretty fucking slick, man. It's pretty slick. So that is undeniably a big asset of Kremlin. The armor profile is just still one of the best in the game of all battleships. It really is. Uh, you know, at least bow in. Something like Loria really does give this thing a run for its money, but even kiting and Kremlin, you're fairly tanky. The ass is a bit susceptible to like 460 plus guns, but not even that bad. It's still a beast. Like, ship is still a fucking beast, man. I don't know. I don't know what we're doing when we're saying like the Kremlin's unplayable in 2024. Like, is it? I'm kind of sad. I briefly mentioned like I trolled myself because I didn't realize the update was when I'm recording this right now. So I had 6 replays from the day before the patch, and I played like more aggressive than these 2 replays, and won 5 out of 6. The loss was like over 200k damage. Like playing like full sending in Kremlin is like a 60+% win rate strat, and then like cautiously full sending is still like a 65 plus win rate strat, and it's like it's still fun. It's still high game impact. It still gets good damage every game. Like this idea that the Kremlin isn't worth grinding because you play against subs and CVs and hybrids, it's like I don't know, man. I think this ship is still fucking great. I still love it. I would 100% grind out the Kremlin if for some reason you haven't. I also would just briefly touch on that this whole line is like demonically good. Like tier 6 and up, this whole line we can just we don't briefly discuss anything on this channel. Who am I fucking kidding? But like these ships are good. Like every ship in this line is a fucking demon, especially if you play ranked. Like if you're looking to play ranked, it's like when Wargaming does a tier 5 ranked season, like Pyotr Veliky, amazing. Tier 6 ranked, Ismail, amazing. Tier 7 ranked, Sinop is one of the best tier 7 battleships in the fucking game. Tier 8 ranked, Vlad is still like a top 5 tier 8 battleship for ranked. Soyuz is still a top 5 tier 9 battleship for ranked. Like these ships are all fucking excellent. They're all excellent when you utilize controlled aggression, and they're even more excellent in a game mode like ranked. Yeah, that will do it for the Kremlin. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next one.